welcome back. Today I am starting another installment in my Readers Also Enjoyed vlog series. This is a series where I pick one of my favorite books and then I go onto Goodreads, onto various blogs, Storygraph, whatever, and I pick out several books that are often compared to my favorite book. Anywhere from like similar plot lines, similar themes, similar settings or characters. I just like to experiment and see if the books that are often recommended as comparisons to some of my favorite books are books that could also be favorite books or could at least be books that I enjoy. For this round of Readers Also Enjoyed, I decided that it was finally time to pick out some books that are similar to one of the books that I have recently decided is probably in my top 5 books of all time, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. As you may be aware, the adaptation of Daisy Jones and the Six on Amazon Prime is coming out in just a little while, and I felt like it was a pretty timely pick because I am sort of in the mood to be back in the world of Daisy Jones and the Six, but I actually just reread this book last year, but I definitely want to sort of like get into the spirit, get into the vibe of the 1970s rock and roll scene as I prepare to watch what is probably going to become my entire personality for the next couple of months. So I decided to pick Daisy Jones and the Six as this round's Readers Also Enjoyed. If you don't know, this book follows the fictional band Daisy Jones and the Six as they come together to record an album in like the 70s and the subsequent drama that occurs and leads to their eventual breakup. It's told in sort of an interview format, almost like a documentary style story, and it's just all about the secrets of the behind the scenes of the rock and roll world. So I picked out 3 books that I think are similar to or are often compared to Daisy Jones, and we're gonna see if they stand up to this one. So the first book I have here is off of my physical TBR, and this is the book that I think is probably the most similar to Daisy Jones, and that is The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton. This is about the singing duo Opal and Nev as they come together to record an album in the 70s, and there is something that happens, I believe, that causes them to break up, and 20, 30, whatever, however many years later, the duo is coming back together for sort of like a reunion tour. And a journalist is given the opportunity to interview the members of this group and all of the people that were sort of around them during the time of their popularity. And we get to find out more about what led to them breaking up. It sounds almost exactly like Daisy Jones. I believe this one is also told in sort of an interview format. So like I said, I think it's probably going to be the most similar of all the books. Next up, I've got a book that I've had off and on my TBR so many times. I've actually tried to read this a couple times in the past and haven't been super successful. Obviously, that's why it's still on my TBR. And that is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. This is about a girl, I believe, who is hired to be the nanny for this family during the summer in the 70s. And the family, the dad of this family is a psychiatrist, and he is going to be treating a rock star for the entire summer to overcome his addiction. And I believe the rock star and his equally famous wife move into this family's house and live with him for the summer, so the girl sort of gets caught up in all of the drama of the situation. I've heard really great things about it, but I myself have just never been able to get into it, so I'm hoping that this vlog, this experiment, will fix that. Obviously, this is similar to Daisy Jones in that it's taking place in the 70s, and it is kind of centered around music, as one of the main characters in the book is a recovering rock star. And finally, you know, I always have to have a little bit of an outlier in these TBRs. I always have to pick one that is just a little bit different. This time around, I've decided to pick Grown by Angie Thomas. This is actually a YA book, and it's also about a young musician named Enchanted who is looking to break into the music industry. At the beginning of the book, she meets a much older man who is already established, and he tells her that he can sort of help her out and get her career started. And she gets caught up in this lifestyle of the rich and famous and all of that. It's a little bit different in that it's YA, first of all, and it's not taking place in the 70s. The storyline is a little bit different, but I do think it's going to have that kind of like gritty storytelling quality that Daisy Jones has, where we get to see all of like the behind the scenes stuff that isn't necessarily always known to the public. I've read Tiffany D. Jackson in the past, and I've really enjoyed books by her, so I'm really hoping that this one will be a winner. So those are the 3 books that I'm going to be reading over the course of the next couple of weeks as I get ready to watch the adaptation of Daisy Jones, but also look for some new favorite books, and I will check in at the end and let you know how everything went. Hi. I decided to start with the outlier, sort of. The last couple times I've done this video, the outlier has typically been my least favorite and the one I saved till the end. So I decided I'm just gonna start with it this time and try to break the cycle. And actually I am already like almost done. I am getting over being sick. I started a new job last week and then like on my second day I got sick and was sick all last week, and I'm still sort of getting over it. So I haven't really been in the mood to vlog. I haven't really been like up for being in front of the camera, but I am almost done with this and I felt like I should come talk to you about it before I actually finish it. So here we are. So this follows a 17-year-old girl named Enchanted. She has dreams of being a singer, and at the beginning of the book she meets this like big name singer who basically is like, I can help you, I launch your career, I am willing to put in work to assist you. The problem is that it's very clear that he is attracted to her, and also he's 28 and she's 17. But through a series of circumstances, she ends up doing some vocal lessons with him and then eventually gets invited to go on a tour with him, and obviously everything is too good to be true. This is a dark book. It pretty much opens up with a murder. You know that a murder has taken place, but the whole book you're sort of leading up to what happened, who was murdered, who's responsible, how we got to that point. And it's really interesting. It's good. I definitely am liking it for as much as you can like a book like this. It's important to note that this is not a fluffy YA contemporary. This is hard-hitting, it's dark, it is hard to read at times. Enchanted becomes very enamored by this singer who is basically promising her the world. As the reader, and also just as an adult, you can see that she is sort of being misled and she has this kind of delusion of what's really going on here. He's preying on her, and it is difficult to be in her head and see and read how she's feeling about him and about the situation, knowing that it is not right and it's not going to end well. I have talked so much lately about how much I have just not been reaching for YA, but every once in a while there are these rare few, these rare, very rare authors who can sort of pull me back in. And I think that Tiffany D. Jackson is one of those authors for me. She's one of those authors that I could definitely see myself reading everything she writes, even if she only continues to write YA, because I love the way she crafts a story. She definitely knows what she's doing in terms of craft. You know, she's great at writing characters, at writing plots, at writing compelling stories that, even though they're difficult to read and topics that you just don't think that any teenager should ever have to go through, she tackles them in such a respectful and honest way, and I really appreciate that. I've only read one other book by her, Monday's Not Coming, and it was so good. And a big part of that book discusses like the main character's mental health and what's kind of going on in that situation. And again, here we're talking about mental health and how important it is to be cognizant of your own mental faculties and also, you know, what's going on around you. And so I'm really enjoying her exploring a different part of mental health in this book. You know, it's not giving me a lot of like warm fuzzy feelings. It's making me very angry, and it makes me want to punch someone for being the kind of person who could put her in this situation. But it's important and it's good and I'm enjoying it. As it relates to Daisy Jones and the Six, the music industry really, I think, is the biggest topic here. There's also a lot of discussion around, you know, sex, drugs, the lifestyle, which is obviously a big part of that. So I do think that, I mean, at this point, I'm not at the end yet, but I do think that if you enjoy Daisy Jones and you're looking for another kind of music-centric book that tackles hard topics, that has compelling characters, this would be a good one to pick up because it is good. I mean, like, I'm enjoying it for what it is. So I'm gonna go finish it right now because I have like, I don't know, less than 50 pages left or something like that. And then I guess I will come back and sort of give you like a final update, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a 5-star read. I honestly feel like it's gonna be a 5-star read. Okay, it's a little bit later and I finished it and I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I mean, it was an incredible book. I liked pretty much everything about this. Everything that it was tackling. I really liked how there were these like mystery components to it, but it wasn't a full-blown mystery. And I really liked how everything was sort of resolved. There were some shocking moments, there were some surprising moments, there were some just really heartbreaking moments. And yeah, this was great. This was absolutely wonderful. Like I said earlier, I do think that if you like Daisy Jones and the Six, then you could enjoy this. It's not really like the same at all, but it is similar. There are some similar themes, topics, everything discussed. This was great. This was fantastic. I love Tiffany D. Jackson, and I will 1000% be picking up more books by her because she has not steered me wrong yet. Yeah, I liked this. I liked this so much. I think my next read is going to be the final revival of Opal and Nev. I was originally going to read this physically. Actually, full disclosure, I've already read the prologue or like the intro or whatever, but I was just watching TikTok, of course, and somebody that I follow is also currently reading this and said that the audiobook is fantastic because it's a full cast, and I love that aspect about Daisy Jones. So I think I want to listen to the audiobook of this one, and lucky for me, it was available from my library, so I already checked it out and I'm going to get started on it. Like I said, I did physically read the beginning and I'm really excited about this one. This one kind of like, just based on the intro, sort of feels like it's going to be a bit of a mix of Daisy Jones and Evelyn Hugo, which is perfect for me because it's, you know, two of my favorite books. I think it's going to have like that sort of like mystery storytelling component of Evelyn Hugo, but it's going to have the musical component of Daisy Jones. I've literally only heard good things about it. Also, I didn't realize, but it's blurbed by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Kylie Reed and Jason Reynolds, all authors that I absolutely love. So I'm really excited to get started with this one. I will come back and check in with you when I have something to say about it. I look like this because I just got out of the bathtub and now I'm having dinner. I'm having a bagel with 1/2 mixed berry cream cheese, the other half brown sugar cinnamon cream cheese, 3 strawberries, and half a chocolate bar. And it's gonna be delicious. This has sort of become my after work snack, my after school snack, if you will. I work at a school now, so that's funny. But yeah, I've been having this in the evenings, and I just got out of the bath and decided I wanted to have my after work snack at 9 p.m. Anyway, you don't care about that. Let's talk about this book. So I just spent like an hour and a half laying in the bathtub playing Settlers of Catan on my phone and listening to the audiobook, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I knew this was gonna happen, but this is such a good comparison for Daisy Jones and the Six. I definitely really like the audiobook. I really like the full cast. I couldn't think of what I was trying to say. I'm not like super far in. I mean, I'm like 25% in, but I don't really think anything's happened yet. Opal and Nev just became a singing duo and they're about to like start recording their album. The whole book premise is that Opal had a kind of torrid love affair with the drummer of the band on her and Nev's first album. And the daughter of that drummer is the one sort of conducting these interviews, because while they were having this affair, he was married to her mom. I guess there's like this mystery component to it because we know pretty much off the bat that her dad died in a riot at a concert that Opal and Nev were putting on. And I'm thinking that the whole like kind of mystery aspect of it is gonna be like what led to that happening. But I'm not like super far in yet, so I don't really have like a good judge of any of the characters or like the story in general. Hi. It's the next day. A couple things. I really want to show you my outfit today, so I'm gonna do that. Here it is. I love it. I honestly love it. So it's the next day. Like I said, I listened to a little bit more of this, a couple more chapters. Again, I don't really have many thoughts about the book yet. I mean, I'm like 30% in and it's fine. Like, I don't have anything outrageously negative to say about it. I don't really have anything outrageously positive to say about it. It's a fun experience. I'm really, really enjoying the audiobook. I kind of want it to be a little bit more about this singer's experience as an up-and-coming Black musician during the 60s and 70s, whenever, I think it's set in the 60s. I kind of want it to be a little bit more about that. It's sort of hinted at that a couple of times, but it isn't going there fully, which I'm hoping that it will. I am planning on getting a good chunk of this read tonight. I'm hoping to get to maybe like the 50% mark. I'm almost there, so it shouldn't take too long. Yeah, I'm at 35%. So I'm probably gonna go sit on the couch for a little bit and listen to a couple hours of this. And cool. I will come back and I will talk to you a little bit more about this when I have more to say. Have every single one of my vlog clips been in front of this window? I think so. It has been a couple of days since I vlogged and a couple of days since I finished the final revival of Opal and Nev, and I figured it was time to like finally come back and talk to you about this book and my overall thoughts and feelings. My dog is eating a treat on the floor behind me, so I'm sorry if you can hear her crunching. So ultimately I did really like this book. I would probably give it like 3.5, 4 stars. I think that it tackles a lot of really interesting topics. I definitely like that it brings up an interesting discussion of, you know, the role that race played in the entertainment industry in the 70s and obviously still plays. I think that it really tried to do a lot, and I think that I just don't think that this book was super memorable. I was actually gonna come back and talk to you at the like 50% mark, but I didn't really have anything to say. So ultimately, I did really like this book. And I think that if you love Daisy Jones, you should read this book because it's really a great comparison to that. And it does offer a more diverse cast, and it definitely tackles some harder topics than Daisy Jones. Some different kinds of harder topics than Daisy Jones. I just think Daisy Jones did it better, unfortunately. I hate that I feel that way because I wanted this to be just like the perfect book, and it just wasn't. I never really cared for or rooted for any of the characters. I just don't feel like I got to know anybody on a super deep level, and I just wanted a lot more from this. Like I said, 3.5, 4-star read. It wasn't like the most amazing book that I've ever read, but it also wasn't the worst book that I've ever read, which is good. I definitely would recommend it. Like, even if you aren't looking for books that are similar to Daisy Jones, I still think that this is a great book and I would recommend it. It just didn't end up being like a perfect book for me. Moving on, let's talk about Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I have started this and I'm like 2 chapters in, so like 25, 30 pages, and it's fine. Like, I'm not loving it. Also, I'm not very far in, so I can't really make a determination just yet. I'm gonna give it a fair chance. I'm not gonna put it aside. I actually tried to do this video last year and I read one book for it and I absolutely hated it. It was one of the worst books I've ever read, and it kind of put me off the whole video, and I tried to read this one after that and I just was like so done with the concept at that point because I really hated the first book that I read for the video. So I sort of gave up on the video at that time. Obviously I've come back to it now and we're 2/3 of the way there, so it's more successful than it was before. I think that in my mind, reading this is sort of bringing me back to that time when I was trying to read this before after I read a book that I absolutely didn't like. Luckily, Opal and Nev was not a 1-star read for me, so it's not like I have this like bad taste in my mouth about the previous book that I finished. I guess I'm sort of in that headspace because I'm trying to read this and it's bringing me back to the time where I got in like a big reading slump because I read a book that I absolutely hated. So I'm gonna try to overcome that by continuing on with this one. I have been reading it physically, but I also have the audiobook, so I might listen to it a little bit and see if maybe I can get into it a little bit more with the audiobook. It's not a super long audiobook either, and honestly the book itself is not that long and the text is huge, so it should be a fairly quick read if I actually could just like get into it. Hello. It's been a couple of days since my last vlog update, and I am coming at you with a big update, and that is that I finished Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, and I have thoughts. So I might have talked about it in a previous clip, but just in case I didn't, I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of this. This is about a girl named Mary Jane who gets a summer job nannying for a family that just moved in to her neighborhood. The husband of the family is a psychiatrist, and he actually has a really famous rock star living with him and his family for the summer who he is treating to overcome his addiction. The rock star is married to this really famous actress who the main character, Mary Jane, has always sort of admired, and throughout the course of the summer she gets kind of introduced to this new life, this new way of living, this new family, and it starts her questioning her own family, her own lifestyle, and the ways that her parents believe and have been raising her to believe. It's not a horrible book. I will say that right off the bat. It's really, really compulsively readable. I read the entire thing today at work. It's Friday, and Fridays are typically a little bit more chill. Like, there's not a lot going on. There's just me and a couple other people in the office. So I was able to get a lot of work done while also listening to the audiobook. And it's a really quick listen. The audiobook was great, but I didn't really love this that much. I actually had quite a few problems with it, or like one main big problem with it, and that is that there is a lot of unchecked racism and anti-Semitism in this book. I know that it's there to sort of like introduce Mary Jane to this like new way of thinking. Her parents come from a traditional background where they go to a country club that doesn't allow black people, and the father even says to her at one point that he would much rather their country club allow black people to join than Jewish people. It was never really like questioned throughout the book, and there was never like a lesson learned. I mean, Mary Jane herself does sort of like come to the realization that she is not racist and doesn't believe the way her parents believe, but her parents are never really like challenged on their belief system. Also, I just feel like there was so much like surface level bullshit sort of in this, and I don't know. I mean, it was fine. If you're looking for a book that's similar to Daisy Jones and the Six, this is not gonna be it. I mean, yeah, there's like this music element because the patient of the doctor is a rock star. So there's a lot of talk of music, and there's a lot of mention of other bands, and there's a lot of singing and stuff in this book, but it's not really about the musician. It's much more just like a coming of age, like figuring out life kind of story, which is fine. But it does say like right here on the dust jacket, Almost Famous meets Daisy Jones and the Six, and I would disagree completely. Well, maybe not with the Almost Famous comparison. It is sort of similar in that coming of age, sort of opening your eyes to a new lifestyle, but definitely not a Daisy Jones and the Six comparison in my opinion. So that's all the books that I was intending to read for this video. I'm gonna let myself sit on all of these books for a couple of days, and then I will come back and do like a full wrap up and discussion about this video and my thoughts. All right, so I'm here to wrap up this edition of Readers Also Enjoyed, where I read books similar to Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So let's just recap what I read for this video and reflect on what I learned from this video. So obviously I started by reading Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this ended up being like such a surprising 5-star read for me. I ended up really, really enjoying it. I love what Tiffany D. Jackson had to say about mental health and the music industry and just taking care of yourself, and it was a huge surprise. This was the book that I thought was going to be the outlier in the video, and it actually had a lot more in common with Daisy Jones than I anticipated. I don't think I loved it quite as much, but like I said, it's definitely a 5-star read, and it is a fantastic book that I would not hesitate to recommend to anyone who thinks that they can handle the tough subject matter. After that, I read the book that I thought was going to be the most similar to Daisy Jones, and that was The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton. This is the book that I would say is probably the most similar book to Daisy Jones that I've ever read, but unfortunately this was kind of a letdown for me. I definitely liked what the author had to say about a lot of the racial issues, and I liked the topics that she explored in the book, but unfortunately I just don't feel like this book went deep enough for me. I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to be like totally caught up in this world with these characters. I wanted to just want to be at an Opal and Nev concert, and I never felt that desire like I did when I was reading Daisy Jones. This is still a really fantastic book, and I absolutely would recommend it. It is such a good read, and I would definitely recommend the audiobook because it has a full cast, but unfortunately this was not a new favorite for me. I would probably give it like 3.5, 4 stars. It's not something that is probably gonna stick with me super long term, but it's a book that I had a lot of fun with in the moment, and that's really all I can ask for. And finally, I finished off this vlog by reading Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I struggled a little bit with this one in the beginning, but I ended up getting sort of sucked into the story, and I read it all basically in one day, so I can't complain about it too much. This is the most different from Daisy Jones. This ended up being the outlier of the video. I ultimately just felt like this didn't really do much for me. It's a really nice coming of age story, but I didn't think the writing was anything super spectacular, and I wasn't really like hooked into the story like I was when I read Daisy Jones. Yes, I might have read this basically in one day, almost in one sitting, but that's really more because of the circumstances of when I was reading it rather than like the book itself. But I definitely would recommend it if you like coming of age stories, if you like books set in the 70s, if you like something that has a little bit of a musical inspiration but isn't totally about the music. It definitely had a lot of interesting things to say, but but it just didn't completely work for me. So all in all, this is sort of being a mixed bag of reactions to these books, which I feel like has been the case for all of my readers also enjoyed thus far. I am gonna continue to do these. I have a lot of fun because I love reading books that kind of give me the feeling of reading my favorite books. These are the books that I would read again for the first time if I could. Like if I could erase it from my brain and read it again for the first time, the books that I've picked for this experiment are those books. So it's almost like I'm getting to read them again for the first time by picking books that are similar, but nothing has surpassed the originals for me yet. My plan is that I want to do at least 2 more of these this year. I want to make it more of a regular thing on my channel because thus far I've really only done like 1 a year since I started doing them. But this year I really want to try to make it maybe like a quarterly or like 3 times a year type of thing. So I thought I would give you a little bit of a sneak peek of the next Readers Also Enjoyed that I'm going to be doing probably in June or July. And I'm super excited because I've already got the books picked out and I can't wait to get started on this experiment. But the book that I will be comparing books Readers Also Enjoyed to is Normal People by Sally Rooney, another book that I would consider probably in my top 5 of all time. So another book that has a lot to live up to, but I am confident that the books I've picked are up for the challenge, and I am so excited to be doing another one of these later on this year. Other than that, I think that's gonna do it for this video. So let me know down in the comments if you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video and what you thought about them. Do you have similar or different opinions to me? I'd really love to know. Also, let me know some books that you have read that are similar to Daisy Jones, or some books that you would recommend to me that might give me sort of that feeling of Daisy Jones. I'd really love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!